You wake up in Rio de Janeiro on a Tuesday, and there is sand in your teeth, and not beach sand, not a polite dusting blown in from Copacabana. 40 meters of it, enough to bury a 12-story building. You crawl out of your window onto what used to be your roof, and the only landmark left on the entire horizon is Christ the Redeemer, standing waist deep in a dune, arms stretched out, looking like he's asking the exact same question you are. What happened last night? The Sahara happened, except it happened in the wrong direction. Here's the thing nobody tells you about the Amazon rainforest. It is not self-sufficient. It's a spoiled child that has been living off an allowance from Africa for the last 10,000 years. Every single year, roughly 182 million tons of dust lifts off the Sahara, mostly from one dried up lake bed in Chad called the Bodil Depression, and rides the trade winds 5,000 kilometers across the Atlantic. That dust is dead diatoms, ancient microscopic algae skeletons, absolutely loaded with phosphorus. About 22,000 tons of it lands on the Amazon every year, which is almost exactly the amount of phosphorus the rainforest bleeds out of its soil through rain runoff. Amazon soil is garbage. That's the secret. All that lush green you see is a closed loop of nutrients cycling through the plants themselves, and the only thing topping up the tank is African dust. Africa has been fertilizing Brazil for millennia for free, with no thank you card. So last night, the trade winds reversed. The intertropical convergence zone, that belt of rising wet air that decides who gets rain and who gets sunburn, slid north. It has done this before, by the way. 6,000 years ago, the Sahara was green, full of lakes and hippos and crocodiles, because Earth's wobble tilted the monsoon a few degrees. It took thousands of years then. Tonight it took 9 hours. And now that same conveyor belt is running backwards. The dust is still moving. It's just moving toward you. Manaus, deep in the Brazilian interior, gets it first. The sky doesn't go dark, it goes ochre. This sick orange glow like somebody put a filter on the entire world. Streetlights come on at noon, then the dust starts settling, and it doesn't stop settling. Cars vanish, roofs vanish. The famous opera house, the one they hauled Italian marble across an ocean to build, becomes a very expensive sandcastle. But wait, it gets worse, because dust wasn't the only thing the wind was carrying. The Amazon generates half of its own rainfall. Trees suck up groundwater and sweat it back into the air. 20 billion tons of water vapor a day, more than the Amazon River itself discharges into the ocean. Scientists call these flying rivers. Without the incoming moisture flow, the trees stop sweating. Without the sweating, there's no rain. Without the rain, more trees die. Fewer trees, less sweat, less rain, more death. That's a feedback loop, and feedback loops don't do gentle. You get to the Rio Negro 3 weeks later, except there is no Rio Negro, there's a canyon, a 12-kilometer wide trench of cracked mud with riverboats lying on their sides like beached whales, hulls up, propellers spinning slowly in the wind. The channel that used to move cargo ships is now a highway for jaguars who have figured out that the fish are all concentrated in the last few puddles and are just standing there, taking their time, like customers at a buffet that's closing. Meanwhile, 7,000 kilometers away, it is raining on the pyramids. Actual monsoon rain, sheets of it, hammering 4,500-year-old limestone that has seen maybe an inch of rain a century. The Sphinx has water pouring off its face for the first time since it was carved. Tourists are filming it and crying, and honestly, fair enough. The physics is beautiful and completely merciless. Rain hits sand, sand darkens, dark ground absorbs more sunlight instead of bouncing it back into space. So the surface heats up, air rises harder, and the rising air pulls in more wet ocean air from the Atlantic. That pulls in more rain, which grows more plants, which darken the ground further, which drives the whole engine harder. It's called the albedo feedback, and it means once the Sahara starts flipping, it doesn't ease into it. It slams, and the Nile swells 300%. Cairo's flood defenses, designed around a river that has been politely predictable since the pharaohs, hold for about a weekend. Lakes reappear in southern Libya, in basins that have been dry hollows of cracked salt for 6,000 years, and then somehow hippos come back, when nobody's entirely sure how. Doesn't matter, there are hippos in Libya, and the internet loses its mind. And in Timbuktu, a Bedouin family named Old steps out of the tent their grandfather pitched on worthless dirt and discovers they are now the wealthiest landowners on planet Earth. Because that worthless dirt is Saharan mineral soil, unleashed, never farmed, stacked with phosphorus and potassium that has been sitting there sealed under sand like money in a vault. And now it's got 2,000 millimeters of rain a year falling on it. This isn't good farmland. This is the best farmland that has ever existed. And the family's first real argument after the crying and the phone calls is about whose turn it is to mow the lawn, because there's a lawn now. There was never a lawn. Grandfather is furious. He crossed this desert on a camel, and now he's being asked about a mower. Then the money moves, and money moves faster than weather. Brazil's entire economy was soybeans and cattle, roughly $160 billion a year of agricultural exports, all of it planted in soil that just became a beach. The Mato Grosso soy belt turns into the largest sand mine on Earth, because that's the only thing left to sell, and the construction industry does need sand. Meanwhile, the skylines of Lagos and Khartoum start growing like time-lapse footage. Every grain trader, every fertilizer company, every hedge fund with a satellite subscription is buying flights to West Africa. Khartoum, sitting where the two Niles meet, becomes the single most important commodity city in human history. Wall Street doesn't collapse. It relocates, it just changes accent, and here's the part that actually decides the next century. African nations look around and realize the entire planet's food supply now sits inside their borders, and they do exactly what oil producers did in 1973. They form a bloc, the Greenbelt Cartel. Water and grain get priced like crude, with quotas, with meetings where the price of bread in Berlin gets decided over coffee in Niamey. Europe, which spent a very long time explaining to Africa how markets work, now sends delegations asking for a seat at the table, and gets put on a waiting list. Back in Brazil, people adapt the way people always adapt, which is to say badly and then hilariously. The first Brazilian National Sandboarding Championship is held on the buried ruins of the BR-319 highway. The road, they spent decades cutting through the jungle. Competitors carved down a 2-kilometer dune that used to be canopy, and the finish line is a rusted gas station sign sticking out of the sand like a tombstone. The crowd is enormous. Nobody knows whether to cheer or apologize. That's what's genuinely unsettling about all this. None of it is impossible physics. The Sahara really was green. The Amazon really is one bad drought cycle away from tipping into savanna. Scientists argue about where that line sits, but almost nobody argues that the line doesn't exist. The only thing separating our world from that one is the direction a few belts of air happen to be blowing, and the fact that they've been blowing that way long enough for us to build our whole civilization, assuming they always will. And so here's the real question, and I want your answer down in the comments. If the world's most fertile land suddenly sat under one group of nations, would they share it? Or would they do exactly what everyone before them did with oil? Be honest, if you made it this far, you're my kind of person. Subscribe to If Planed, because next time we're taking apart something even more uncomfortable, and I want you in the room when we do.